Hi students, welcome to the continuation of our online classes. Here we are going to discuss about separating the components of a mixture. So we have learned that mixture is composed of one or more substances. Now in this part we are going to separate the components of the mixture. So first we are going to separate the components of ink. Fountain pens we are using ink. So we are trying to separate the components of blue or black ink. So to know it, we have to do an experiment. That experiment is very simple. We can take a beaker and half of the beaker should be filled with water. And above the beaker we can keep one watch glass. You should put watch glass we can keep. And on this watch glass we can add a few drops of ink. It can be either blue ink or black. Then after that you have to heat it. You can heat the beaker. When we heat the beaker, water gets heated and water changes to steam, and with the help of this steam, the ink that is kept in the watch glass that gets heated and the volatile components from the ink, it gets vaporizes. Volatile component means the component which can be vaporized easily. They are known as volatile components, and the volatile components it gets evaporated. And if we continue it for some more time, we can see that there will be either black color or blue color stain on the cover glass or watch glass. Actually, that is a non-volatile component. That component cannot be vaporized. So from this experiment, we can say that ink is a mixture. In that mixture, a volatile component will dissolve a non-volatile component. Here non-volatile component is dye. Dye will be dissolved in water or any other solvent. Hope this part is understood. Now we are going to learn about how can we separate cream from milk. How can we separate cream from milk? Nowadays we know different types of milk is available in the market. It will be toned or double toned or full cream milk. Like that, different varieties of milk is available in the market. And we can take some full cream milk and we can add it to the test tube. And with the help of a centrifuging machine that is available in our lab, we can centrifuge it. That means when we keep the test tube in the centrifuging machine and when we switch on that centrifuging machine, it will rotate too fast. So as it rotates too fast, we can see that all the cream it floats above the test tube, and the remaining liquid, it will be below. So cream particles it rises up. So if the centrifuging machine, if it is not available also, we can do it in our home. So in almost all the traditional homes, there will be a churner will be there to separate the components of mixture. So when we churn it, that means when we rotate it fast, what happens? All the cream particles it rises. That means it will comes and occupy top of that milk or butter. So from this we can understand that we can separate the components of the components of the milk, or we can separate the cream from milk by a process called centrifugation. And here it can ask the question, what's the principle behind the centrifugation? The principle behind the centrifugation is very easy. So the denser particles settles at the bottom, and lighter particles moves to the top. This is the principle behind the centrifugation. That means when we spun a liquid, then the lighter particles they will float and heavier particles or denser particles they will settle at the bottom. This is the principle. Now we are going to learn about the applications of centrifugation. Now let us learn what are the applications of centrifugation. The applications are these. It is used in diagnostic laboratories for blood and urine tests. It is used in dairies and home to separate butter from cream. It is used in washing machines to squeeze out water from wet clothes. Next, we can learn how can we separate mixtures of two immiscible liquids. Immiscible liquids means the liquids which cannot mix up thoroughly. That means we won't get a uniform composition or it will be a heterogeneous mixture. If such a mixture, how can we separate it? So example, it is given in our book is that kerosene and water. If we mix kerosene and water, how can we separate kerosene and water? To separate kerosene and water here, we need a separating funnel. We need an instrument called separating funnel. We need an instrument called separating funnel. So in normal filtration we cannot separate it, you know. So we need separating funnel. The diagram of separating funnel is given here. You can understand it how it works. Now I will say the procedure how to do this experiment. So we told that already there is a mixture because kerosene and water. So now we have to add kerosene and water to this separating funnel. So after that, let it stand undisturbed for some time so that separate layers of oil and water are formed. If we kept it for some time without disturbing, we can see that there will be separate layers of kerosene and water. We know compared to water, kerosene has less density and it will be on the top layer, and water has more density compared to kerosene and it will be on the bottom layer. So we can see the two distinct layers. After seeing this, after getting these distinct layers, we can open the stopcock. We can note the position of the stopcock, it is given in the diagram. So just we can open the stopcock. When we open the stopcock, what happens? So water starts to flow out through this stopcock and we can collect this water and observe it carefully and cross the stopcock of the separating funnel as the oil reaches the stopcock. So as soon as the oil reaches the stopcock, we have to close it. Now water we have collected in a beaker and where is kerosene? Kerosene is there in the separating funnel. So water is separated, kerosene is separated. In this way we can separate two immiscible liquids. So remember, to separate the immiscible liquids, we need an instrument, its name is separating funnel. So it can ask the question, how can we separate the mixture of oil and water? We can separate it with the help of separating funnel. And now we have to know what is the principle behind the separating funnel, or what is the principle behind the separation of immiscible liquids based on separating funnel. Or what is the principle behind the separating of two immiscible liquids using separating funnel? It is given here, immiscible liquids separate out in layers depending on their densities. In immiscible liquids, they will be arranged or they will be in different layers based on their densities. Now we can learn what are the applications or uses of separating funnel. Applications are here to separate the mixture of oil and water. The second one, in the extraction of iron from its ore. Next one, how can we separate a mixture of salt and ammonium chloride? So here salt and ammonium chloride both are white in color, both are salts. So here how can we separate it? How can we separate it? So this method or this is theory we have learned in the first lesson. We know ammonium chloride, it has a specialty. What is that? It is a sublimable substance. It is a sublimable substance. That means it can change directly from solid to gas. But salt won't change directly from solid to salt. So if a sublimable substance and a non-sublimable substance, we have to separate. The easiest way, what is that? We can sublime it. We know how can sublime that. So even though this diagram is given, just observe the diagram and we can memorize it once again. What we have learned in the first lesson. So here the apparatus has been given. In the watch glass we can take the mixture of ammonium chloride and salt and cover it with a funnel and close the end of the funnel with cotton, and we have to heat it. When we are heating, only ammonium chloride directly changes to gas, and what will be left behind there and what will be left behind in the watch glass, only salt will be left behind. By this method we can separate a mixture of salt and ammonium chloride. Not only ammonium chloride, there are some more sublimable substances are there. Already we have learned in the first lesson. We can memorize it once again. They are ammonium chloride, camphor, naphthalene and resin. So in the mixture, any of these components are there. We can separate them by a process called sublimation. It can ask the question, how can we separate the mixture of naphthalene and common salt? Answer is clear, we can separate it by sublimation. Our next topic is the dye in black ink a single color? Is the black color made up of single color? So to understand this, let's perform an activity. To do this activity, we need a strip of filter paper. So in this filter paper, you have to mark a line just 2 to 3 centimeters from the lower part. Now a drop of ink you have to add to this line. Add to this center of this line. Let it dry. After, you can lower this filter paper into the water that has taken in a beaker or test tube. You have to lower this filter paper just above the ink or just above the line. And we can carefully observe it. So we know filter paper is a good absorbent, so water easily rises through the filter paper. So as the water rises, the component of the dye which gets dissolved in water easily, so it dissolves first. And which dissolves next, that too dissolves. So if you are observing, we can see that as the water rises, there will be different colors can be observed. That means different colors spreads as the water rises. This experiment shows that black dye, it is not a single color, it is a combination of different colors. So this method of separation of colors is known as chromatography. So chromatography, and in Greek language, the meaning of the word chroma is color. So it got the name chromatography because this technique was used in earlier times to separate the colors from a mixture. Now it's a time we can define what is chromatography. Chromatography is the technique used for the separation of those solutes that dissolve in the same solvent. Here we have taken water, so what are the components of that ink dissolves in water that can be separated by this method, and this is known as chromatography. Now let us learn what are the applications of chromatography. Chromatography is used to separate colors in the dye. First one, it is used to separate colors in the dye, and second one, used to separate the pigments from natural colors. It is used to separate the pigments from natural colors, and third one, used to separate the drugs from blood. It is used to separate drugs from blood. So let us remember the points once again. It is used to separate colors from the dye, or it is used to separate pigments from the natural colors, and it is used to separate drugs from blood. Now we are going to learn about how can we separate the components of two miscible mixtures. So how can we separate the components of two immiscible mixtures? We have learned it was with the help of separating funnel. Now we are going to learn about how can we separate the components of two miscible liquids. So we can separate the components of the two miscible liquids with the help of a process called distillation. So distillation you might have studied earlier. We can recollect or we can memorize it once again. So we can take the mixture that has to be separated in a distillation flask. So distillation flask, we know the flask that is used for distillation is known as distillation flask. Here we have taken the mixture of acetone and water. We have taken the mixture acetone and water. So this acetone and mixture we can take it in a distillation flask, and we can add the temperature slowly. We can add temperature, means we can increase the heat slowly. So also we have fixed one thermometer also in this. So as we are increasing the temperature, we can see that at 56 degrees Celsius the acetone starts to boil. There will be some particles, some liquid components starts to boil. We can see those particles, that component is acetone. So as the acetone started boiling, if you observe the thermometer scale, we can see that there will be no rise in the temperature. It will be 56. So this acetone started boiling. Boiling means we know it is changed to vapor state. That vapor passes through the condenser and we can collect it in the beaker. So after all the acetone has been changed into vapor, so we can observe that the temperature gradually rises. So all the acetone has been collected there. So next again, if we continuously heat the water, when the temperature rises 100 degrees Celsius, the water changes to vapor. That water vapor also it can be cooled and we can collect it in the beaker. So in the first beaker we have collected acetone, and in the second beaker we have collected water. So these immiscible liquids, components of these immiscible liquids we have collected in two different beakers. Such a way we can collect components of two miscible liquids. Okay. Now let me ask a question. If the difference in the boiling point of two components of the miscible mixture, if it is less than 25 Kelvin, can we separate it? Can we adopt the distillation method? Yeah, definitely we cannot adopt this. We cannot adopt this method. For that we need another method that is known as fractional distillation. For example, if we have to separate the components of air, we know air is a mixture of different gases. So if we have to separate these components, so separate the gases from the air, so we cannot adopt the distillation method, but we can adopt fractional distillation. Same is the case if we want to separate the components of the petroleum, then also we have to adopt a fractional distillation. Fractional distillation is same like distillation, and there is only one difference. What is that? There will be a fractionating column. By observing the picture, we can understand that there will be a fractionating column between the delivery tube and the distillation flask. There is only one difference we can see between distillation and fractional distillation. So in our next part, we are going to learn about how can we obtain different gases from air. Hope you can answer how can we separate the different components of air. Just a moment before we have told how, yeah, we can separate the different components of air by a process called fractional distillation. How can we, you may get again number of questions, number of doubts you may get. Air is in liquid state, so how can we separate it by fractional distillation? So what we will do, first we will liquefy our atmospheric air. We can liquefy the atmospheric air. For the liquefaction of atmospheric air or air, there are two conditions are required. What are the first one? We have to compress it. We have to compress the air and we have to lower the temperature. Means by applying the pressure and cooling the mixture, we can change them into liquid state. As we can change them into liquid state, later if it is a liquid, we can adopt the fractional distillation. So one more thing, the difference in the boiling points of the different components of the air is less than 20. Less than 20 Kelvin. So for example, main component of the air is nitrogen. Its boiling point is minus 196 degrees Celsius, and that oxygen it is minus 183 degrees Celsius. So the boiling points are, difference in the boiling points are very less. So we have to adopt fractional distillation. So you have liquefied the air. After liquefaction of the air, we can adopt the method of fractional distillation. Then different components of the air we can collect in different layers. We can collect in different layers. Observe the diagram. There is a schematic diagram of the separation of the components of air is given there. Let us observe. It is given that first air will be compressed. Air is compressed and that hot air passes through the condenser. That means that hot air gets cooled. And that cool compressed air passes through the separator and air is compressed and cooled. By compressing and cooling, the carbon dioxide content in that air, it changes to dry ice. Remember, we have learned dry ice. Solid carbon dioxide is known as dry ice. So that means without changing to liquids, some substances can be directly changed to solid. Some gases can be directly changed to solid. Such a substance is carbon dioxide. When the pressure is applied and the temperature is decreased, then carbon dioxide will not change into liquid state, but directly it will change to solid state. So dry ice can be separated in this level, and we can pass it into expansion jet. And according to the difference in the boiling points, we will get the different. Hope you have understood this topic. And now we are going to learn about another topic. What is that? How can we obtain pure copper sulfate from an impure sample? So, robust students, already we have learned copper sulfate. What is color of copper sulfate? Yeah, color of the copper sulfate is blue. It is a blue colored salt. Copper sulfate is blue colored salt. If it is impurities are there in the copper sulfate, how can we purify it? So first, what we have to do? We have to dissolve the copper sulfate in minimum amount of water. Okay, we have dissolved the copper sulfate in minimum amount of water. After that, we have to filter it out. After filtration, if there are any insoluble impurities, it will be separated. After that, we have to make this solution saturated. Means copper sulfate solution, we have to make it saturated by heating it. When we heat it, most of the water component it evaporates. After that, we got the thick solution, or after we got the saturated solution, we can keep this saturated solution aside or left undisturbed for a day. After that, we can see next day what we can see. We can see the crystals of copper sulfate. This process, we got the crystals of copper sulfate, and this process is known as crystallization. So let me define what is crystallization. Crystallization is a process that separates a pure solid in the form of its crystals. It is the process of separation of a pure solid in the form of crystals. In the form of crystals. So even the salt, common salt that we use in our home, that too can be separated by this process. We can dissolve copper sulfate, we can dissolve sodium chloride or common salt in minimum amount of water. And we can filter it, and we can concentrate it, or we can saturate it by heating it. After that, left it undisturbed for a day, and the next day we will get the crystals of sodium chloride or common salt. So now let us know what are the applications of this method. That means what are the applications of crystallization. The applications of crystallization are purification of salt. It is useful for the purification of salt we get from seawater, and the next one, it is useful for the separation of crystals of alum from the impure salts. So these are the applications. There are two applications. First one, purification of salt that we get from seawater, and the second one, separation of the crystals of alum from impure salts. So we can say that we have learned about different type of mixtures and what are the different methods for the separation of the components from these mixtures. So one thing is clear, what is the nature of the mixture, based on that we can adopt different methods of separation of the. Okay, hope you have understood this topic, and now we are going to learn and say about a very small topic, that is physical and chemical changes. So what is physical changes? Physical change is a change in which only physical properties of the substance will be changed. For example, when water changes to ice, only the physical properties change. That means water was in liquid state, but when it is became ice, it changed to solid state. There is no change in the chemical properties. Only physical properties have been changed here. Such changes are known as physical changes. Not only this solid state or solid liquid gas, we have learned some physical properties like rigidity, solubility, hardness, color, density, melting point. If any of these things are changed, we can say it as a physical change. And note that in physical change, only these physical properties will be changed, and there will be no change in the chemical nature, or chemical properties will not be changed. So water, when it is changed to ice, before when it was water, its chemical composition is H2O, and when it is changed to ice, then also it is H2O. So we can say that liquid water, steam, ice, all these have the same chemical properties, and they have different physical properties. So such changes are known as physical changes. And when we are come to know about chemical changes, chemical changes usually a new substance it will be formed or their chemical property will be changed. Their chemical property is changed. For example, if we take a substance and when we burn it, burning means in science we know what is the meaning of burning. Burning means that substance combines with oxygen and corresponding oxide will be formed. So if the corresponding oxide, that means it is a new substance, and such changes are known as chemical changes. So to understand what is physical property and what is chemical property or physical change and chemical change, here is an example given: cooking oil and water. We can say, if you are seeing the physical properties, both are liquids. Both are liquids. Both it can flow. They observe fluidity, and there will be many physical properties will be common, but their chemical properties are not same. What is oil? It can burn. But what about water? It extinguishes fire. It is opposite. So these are the physical properties and chemical properties. So chemical property makes you understand the chemical nature of the substance. Chemical nature of the substance. So another one question it is given in the textbook is that burning of candle, whether it is physical change or chemical change. Burning of candle, it is physical change as well as chemical change. What's the reason? In burning of candle, candle is made up of wax. So when we are burning that candle, wax of the candle melts. Melting is a physical change. And after melting, that wax, it vaporizes. That is physical change. But after that, it combines with oxygen. That means when it gives the fire or when it burns, it combines with oxygen, and that combining with oxygen, that is a chemical change. So in this process, there will be physical change and chemical change. Hope you have understood the topic, and next day we can learn about the pure substance.